Welcome aboard, everybody, to the Cross Commission Saturday Night Power Hour, our brand new YouTube show for everyone. I'm Ryan. We got Safe and Jake. We've done some of these streaming things in the past, but now we're doing it for real here on YouTube. So week 0 in the books, and already a lot to talk about. So thanks for joining on this evening, and hope to begin a new little weekly show here, the Cross Commission Saturday Night Power Hour. How are we guys doing here?
Good.
It was the best of times.
Philip, safe take that one.
Yeah, so
Absolutely.
Listen. Safe. Hopkins lost, but you didn't have to watch that Maryland Richmond game. So.
I was right there with you watching that. That's the sick part. Only a sick person would voluntarily.
So yes, there's a lot going on. Thank you guys for joining us. If you're watching us live, hit a like button. If you're watching the replay, hit a like button. We got a new YouTube channel. We're getting all spiffy here. And if you're listening on the podcast method like we usually do, check us out on YouTube too. We now got a YouTube page at the Cross Commission. So we're spreading our wings and our horizons here. And we, so the way that this show is going to work, might run a little bit late today, but Jake is going to keep us on a tight ship here. 1 hour, he controls the clock, a set amount of time we talk about each game. How much time per game?
I want to go. Doesn't really matter. We just got 1 hour. I want to go. Doesn't really matter.
We just
got 1 hour
to get things done. Starting with the first game starts the clock. Hence the power hour. It's not one of those drinking power hours. I got a water here. We're not like these podcasts that get hammered doing a podcast. So
proud of you.
Yeah, don't worry. We're not And usually we're going to run a little bit earlier, but tonight running a little bit later because we set up the YouTube page yesterday, and they give you a 24-hour hold. I don't know why. I guess in case somebody...
You truly got to respect like YouTube and Google's commitment to like just inordinate amounts of...
Yeah, well, I don't know. Like, oh, this person's going to do something really bad, whether that's graphic or hopefully not self-harm or something. So like, no, you're going to have to wait 24 hours before you broadcast this.
Like the 7-second delay for streaming.
Yes. 7-second delay, but
only for the first one.
The other ones, go buck wild with that.
We're good after
that. Go.
But we
just like cooling off. Resist. Then
we trust you now. You're proving yourself.
Proving yourself the trustworthy person because we're forced to wait 24 hours. To not stream after this.
So
by all means.
So let's get things started because after a whole off season of Johns Hopkins fans feeling happy about themselves, coming off a quarterfinal run, they got some good talent coming in, a lot of returning guys. Looks like Milliman's humming. What is the rule we have learned, Jake, whenever Safe or our good buddy Adam are feeling optimistic about the Johns Hopkins Blue Jays?
All right. 1 hour on the clock. 1 hour on the clock. As I say, you gotta wait to see it on the field. As I say, you gotta wait to see it on the field. And
we've got 59:43.
We've got 59:43 for about 55 minutes. It looked really good. It looked really good. It looked great. It looked great. I mean, I thought 30 minutes. I thought 30 minutes. 30 minutes. In 30 minutes, the game was awesome. It was the game was. Me and Safe talked about it on the podcast. On Wednesday. I didn't really exactly have high, I didn't really exactly have high entertainment perspective for this game. From an entertainment perspective for this game, two top 20 teams. Obviously, it was two top 20 teams. Final Four type expectations. Final Four type expectations. Denver's got some. Denver's. There's been some buzz kind of percolating about Denver. There's been some buzz kind of percolating about Denver. Potential Big East favorite, and I suppose maybe that's been validated. And I suppose maybe that's been validated. Results after today's results. Look, it's February 3rd. Look, it's February 3rd. Got a long way to go. Got a long way to go.
Denver 13, Johns Hopkins 12 in overtime. Hopkins blew a fourth quarter lead. Let Denver score 6 out of the last 7 goals, I believe, was the tally.
Yeah.
And the start of life without Bill Tierney is going swimmingly for the Denver Pioneers.
Yeah. First half was from awesome. Second half was Second half more kind of what I expected. Much more kind of what I expected. A bit of a slog. But looked great for 55 minutes. And then 55 minutes, and then it quickly turned. I'll let Save take it from here.
You said you know when I start up here. Oh God.
Save, I want you to run us through your just your emotions, minute by as this is unfolding.
I'll tell you exactly where. So it's like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 1, where Turtles Shredder comes and starts beating them. Michelangelo's like, where exactly in this situation we lose control? But it was one of I agree with everything you were saying about the first half. It's kind of what you wanted to see from Hopkins. Hunter come out with the just absolute boil. Was it that Born 1 or Born 2?
I think it's the second one where they're having the meeting, and he's asking for Nikki. God, what's her name? Julia. Is it Julia Stiles? Julia Stiles? Yeah. He's asking for Julia Stiles. They're like Cox and the other. I forget the actress's name. And they're like somewhere. We don't know if we can find it. We don't know if we can find it. We don't know where she's like. We don't know where it is. She's like, it shouldn't be that hard. She's like, it shouldn't be that hard. She's staying right next to you. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%. He had a fantastic game.
It was just everything you kind of wanted. It was like scoring. Really, I mean, like I had. This is the best time of year to have like three devices on, like multiple browsers on for the computer. So Hopkins was on the TV, like, with the ESPN app, but I was like, it was going swimmingly, and it was 7 minutes and 37 seconds. That's the point. Jacob scored, Edges scored to go back up 4 after Denver had cut it to 3 when Hopkins was up 4. And that was a moment because everyone was just like all about the Georgetown getting like smoked by Loyola, and Maryland, like close game with Richmond, and Penn State Colgate. So I was like, I'm okay to like move this to like the phone or to the back browser. I'll put Maryland, Richmond on TV, and I had like Georgetown and Penn State kind of like focused, and it was literally like 3 minutes. It was like 3 or 4 minutes later, and I just hear in the chat, "What's happening?" And then I just saw the last 44 seconds, and I was just like, "What is going on?" Like with the. And then into overtime, I just felt horrible right from the overtime. Even when we got the first possession, I was just like, "This doesn't feel like this all feels wrong." And I don't think it was pride. I like your intro, Ryan. It was like, pride does go before the fall. And usually it comes to me in Hopkins. But I felt like that. This was like almost. You know what it reminded me of, Jake? Right? The Georgetown Hopkins game last year, when Georgetown was just like, okay, we got them. Let's just, they're about to fade. We're at, we got this. And then it's just like Denver just didn't quit, and they were like, even Hopkins, like when it said up to with 44 seconds left, I think most people were like, okay, oh yeah, we got us a little scared. Denver's gonna look good for the rest of the season. But no, and I don't think anyone really expected to actually go into overtime and end up losing. And I think it was like, it happens in a lot of sports where you have the big lead and the team just won't go away. And it happened throughout the game. That's when I knew I was really getting concerned, because I didn't really leave until like we were up 4 with like 7:37. I was like, I think this is okay. I can like, but it was just like throughout the game, whenever Hopkins had started to go up to 2 or 3 goal spurt, like Denver would just like quickly get it back just within striking distance, just within like grabbing distance, and they, even though they were like getting down 4 twice in the fourth quarter, they just didn't seem to have any like stop button on them. It was, what it was, Jake. It was that it kind of reminded me because the clip from Rocky 2 that you showed, where Apollo was talking with his team, and it just, it wasn't that drastic. It was game 1, but it was just like, yeah, Denver just wouldn't quit no matter like what Hopkins was doing. It was what we kind of always say, like, since we've done this pod, like sometimes you just have to put foot on the throat. Like they're not just going to just like the clock's just going to run out and then you'll be able to like get away with 2 or 3. Like sometimes it's just kind of like these. It's just they're never going to quit on you. And so shout out to Denver. I think consensus we had about them around like 12 to 15 range. Definitely like had a lot of changes over the offseason, coaching staff and just new faces, but like kind of thought like, yeah, maybe they'll make a little bit of a scare in the Big East. But given what happened to Georgetown today, is like maybe they could be like a year early, Denver, if they continue on for the rest of the year. So yeah, I mean, if for Hopkins fans, this is like, it was disappointing. And I think like it's no real reason to panic. Like they were playing great. It's just probably just a little bit of closing out, because I think last year, like they were always, not always, but like kind of behind going into the third and fourth, and they just didn't quit because they had to keep sprinting to like catch and then eventually eclipse and take the lead. It was just almost just like, oh, what do we do? We're up 4, and it's just like that weird phase is just like, let's just try to go up 6, 7, 8, or just like try to get try to just close out the game and run out the clock a little bit. But it's kind of like one of those good problems. I feel like the offense looked good. It's just like learning how to close. This is a different team, different expectations, and the teams that they're playing are going to be treating them differently because kind of like snuck up on teams last year a little bit. I think like Bobby Hopkins was like viewed a year early for a lot of people, so that's not going to happen this year. They're some people put them in their Final Four predictions. Raise his hand. And so like I think teams that like their opponents are going to be like, yeah, this is a good way for us to get on the map, like potentially on national TV, or like I think that Towson game, like I don't think Hopkins is going to blow it like to Towson, but like it's going to, this ESPNU game. Towson has been kind of like not really in the mix the last couple of years for them. Like meeting Hopkins at Homewood, like that would be like a statement. So I think like players, I'm sure Milliman's going to prepare them, probably as well, like to be ready for that kind of relentlessness that I don't think was there last year. If anything, Hopkins was a relentless team because they're still kind of like going up that hill, but it's harder to defend a hill sometimes because these going to have moments like this. Hey, let's knock out a top 5 team.
It's really striking when you look at Hopkins had 4 penalties in the fourth quarter. I mean, that's like none. Denver had 3 through the first 3 quarters, and a delay of game and offsides and a holding. So Denver's were all just kind of like procedural, kind of happens in February. I don't think Hopkins scored on any of Hopkins didn't score on any of those man up opportunities either. Like they had one early, they didn't score, but they did score on that same possession, I think, after it. Then there was one at 5:39, it was an offside, and Hopkins didn't score, but again, they scored like right after it. So similar, like on the possession. And there was one with 1:59 left in the third, and Hopkins did not score on that. And that might go, you feel like maybe that was a chance to go up 5. And if you'd gone up 5, maybe you put it away. And that's, I think what Poppy Hopkins looks like. There's no goals scored in this game for a period of about 15 minutes. Like from the 7 minutes left in the third to 8:08 in the fourth. Like basically a quarter, no goals are scored. And it's like the game just kind of stops. And, that's where, if Hopkins felt in control, because Denver wasn't really getting any opportunities, Hopkins had the ball for, and I was like, all right, like they're in, control for most of it. But yeah, as we always talk about, like, you can't, Quint said it on the broadcast, you can't stall your way to a win. And I don't know that they were trying to deliberately do that, but it did, have, I guess, the vibe of that, they were kind of, once the lead, they couldn't build the lead from 11 to like 12 or 13. It did sort of feel in that fourth quarter like they kind of got content with, all right, let's just try and get out of here, with the W. And that's a tough, and look, to credit, like, still, Denver got it to 11-9 with 5 minutes left. It's like, oh, okay, that's a little interesting. And then Hopkins still got right back and got it to 12. I mean, and that was one of Hopkins' 2 shots for the entire quarter. Like, Hopkins took 2 shots in the fourth quarter, and they scored on one of them. Now, granted, they had some turnovers in there, like, so they threw the ball away a little bit, but that's still just like the fourth quarter is insane to look at, like 17-2 in shots. And again, but a lot of it is like, what do you like? I mean, put yourself man down. Like, Juronsky goes off for tripping at 8:27, and then Smith takes just 2 bad penalties. Oh, cross check with a minute cross check at 3:29, and then obviously the body check, which, I mean. Look, this is really we got games. Like, what the hell are they doing?
That last little bit, my goodness! Like, and we were saying in the chat,
like this
if
is
you have a non-releasable penalty with less than 10 seconds left. We learned this from the Syracuse Cornell first round game a couple years ago, which was coached by Peter Milliman.
Yes!
Cornell won because they were smart enough to realize if you commit penalties on defense, there's nothing that could happen. They don't roll over like cell phone minutes. The game's over. If you're down on a 6-on-5, murder's pretty much legal at this point. Do something. They can't give up, and it wasn't even like there was that much time for Denver to do anything. 2 seconds.
2 seconds.
They got a look and scored on it. With time to spare. There's 7/10 of a second left when that hit the twine.
Quinn is literally like, you got to throw it in front of that, screen the goalie. And instead, they throw it up top, and the one dude on the Denver team who can score, like literally, J.J. Sostrop scores Denver's last 4 goals of this game.
3 in the last 4 minutes, and then the overtime where like that was what I was like. Well,
it's the one guy.
6 goals. Yeah, he scored 6 goals total of Denver 13. Like 4 in the last 3 in the last minute, and then the overtime. Like that, like 99 out of 100 times that's not going to happen. Close out that game. Like so, I don't foresee that 2 second resulting in a goal many times, but it was maddening. Like this was like an inside straight that they were able to like just pull.
It's like you have 3 options here. Like Ryan says, one, you can just bear hug everybody, like just put a man on a man, like bear hug literally everybody, like just tackle everybody. Or 2, you can decide, look, there's one guy on Denver's team who can hit an outside shot. It's Solstra. That's it. They got one dude one guy who can hit an outside shot. So shut him off and just play. And you can play the rest of it straight up if you want. But shut him off. He's the only guy who can hit that shot and beat you. And if you play the rest of it straight up, but you shut him off, you're probably fine. Because what else is they're gonna have to throw it inside. And I mean, 2 seconds left, they throw it inside. It would literally take a miracle at that point. Like, something bounces off of, like Ireland just basically has to throw a stick out there and, catch it. Instead, they do neither. And Silstrop is like, I mean, he could have taken, like, as Ryan said, he had like room, like to spend, like he could have like wound up. Just like, I mean, it was comical how much, like we were wondering as well, like, man, like if this was like close and they didn't have replay, and it's like, oh no, close. comfortable. Like, there's like a minute left. Or not a minute, a second.
Who said that? Was it Chris? Yeah, probably one of us. But I think it was Chris. It was like, it would just be beautiful if like Hopkins couldn't do the replay because
no, like he had so much.
It was funny.
Time.
Yeah, I was like, there was no question about it. I was like,
and I mean, throw that Denver's win probability per lacrosse reference with 2 minutes and 30 seconds left was 1.7. I mean, that's insanity. Like chain of events that had to occur here is Hopkins goes back up 12-9. It's 4 minutes left. Like, that's it. And then Denver wins the faceoff, scores, and then scores with a penalty. Like, again, like twice. Like, I mean, like, with after a dead ball, Hopkins goes. So they score. Smith gets a cross check. Denver wins the man up faceoff, but they turn it over. So Hopkins gets a reprieve, basically, because Denver man up commits off that Smith cross check. Denver turns it over. So this is where Hopkins has the 99% win probability, is that Denver down 2 goals has turned the ball over back to Hopkins. Hopkins has it with 2 minutes left. They just have to clear. They can run off, 80 seconds, and Denver has a minute to score 2 goals, and they have to win a face-off in between there. Hopkins blows the clear. Ireland makes a save with 1:26 left. Still, Hopkins cannot get the loose ball. They score. Hopkins, though, at 12:11, wins the face-off. And they turn it over again. With Denver gets it. So Hopkins has 2 turnovers in here. After Hopkins goes up 12-9, despite the fact that they get multiple defensive stops and win multiple faceoffs, they never put the ball on offense again for the rest of regulation. That feels impossible. like Denver, I mean, they do a great job. It's like they don't even actually execute it the way you really should execute it. They turn it over themselves. They win the faceoff but lose it. It all doesn't exactly go the way you draw. Like, if you're Denver down 3 with 4 minutes left, it's like, okay, we got to score, win the faceoff, score. It's like we can maybe afford 1 bad possession here. They have 2 or 3, and it doesn't matter. It's about as bad late game bungle as you could possibly draw up.
Now, this is the terrible. Power Hour, and I believe we've already spent about 20 minutes on just Johns Hopkins. So we got to get used to our new format where we go rapid fire. We have our next game. Who would like to lead off with that?
This is
the shocking game of the weekend.
Oh, man. Box score for this game yet?
CJ Malone said
so just for those that are listening,
where the guy is sitting outside exhausted from work. That's CJ Malone and his 8 points.
So for those of you that are listening and not watching, Colgate 13, Penn State 12. That is Safe and I's national champion pick, Penn State, losing to what place was Colgate in the preseason Patriot League, Paul?
Oh God, that's a great question. I gotta look that up.
8? But maybe Holy Cross, I think, is below them.
They were Colgate was 8th with 33 votes.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's nasty.
But these 2 games came back, and these were 2. I don't want to make an outlandish comparison, but these were 2 strikes at my core, at my brand, that just back to back. It was just devastating. But yeah, who was the first one that gave a upset? Was it you, Ryan? One of yours is hey, Colgate's kind of.
I think it was at the very beginning of the game, and I think it was all of us.
I refuse to believe it Yeah, like Penn State like never really like has any moment of like they like have a lead at like 3-2. I think I was looking at, and like, but otherwise like the game's just like not like
2-0
at any point comfortable. But you just like it's just you just like refuse to believe it because it's just like okay, come on, like like they'll like go on a run in the second half and they'll pull away with this, and then at some point in the third quarter it goes to like 4-goal Colgate lead, and you're like Again, if you have not seen the box score for this game, one, I'm going to give you like a warning. Like it's truly
the reason why
abominable.
YouTube has 24-hour delays to start streaming.
Exactly. They like you can't show this to the people. Like it's so bad. Yes, Colgate. So Colgate has a 2-1 lead. They go up 4-3. They go up 6-4 at the half. And I mean, look, the fact just in general that Penn State doesn't like. I'll just start to quote. Like, look, they're picked 8th in the Patriot League in preseason. Like, you expected Penn State to blow them out. Like, I mean, I don't know what the line was. I forget, but it was significant.
9.5.
Oh God.
9.5.
Oh my God.
As a cheeky because you picked Bellarmine. I was like, oh, good. That's a lot of points for Penn State coming to them. But oh man.
So yeah, the box score in this one is like it's rough on both ends. I mean, Colgate, look, they got the job done. Doesn't matter. They don't put them in the win column was like it just says W. Doesn't matter how. 46 combined turnovers.
That's fair. That's fair. That's fair. Lacrosse
20 each. 20 each. You know, when you look at the turnover, you see both teams start with a 2. You're for a whopper. Clearing. Colgate clears 24 of 32, which is 75%. Penn State clears 17 of 24, which is 71%. So both teams blow combined 15 clears. That is just at one point of this game, I was going through the like when you go to the box screen, you hit play by play. I was like just like checking off like each like possession, like the number of possessions like teams had. At one point in this game, like Colgate has like 20 possessions and it scored 10 goals. Like they weren't even like, like they were throwing the ball away. They were like, failing clears, and Penn State's winning faceoffs. That's the other thing in this game. Like Chase Mall is winning faceoffs for Penn State, and Colgate's just scoring goals anyway. Which is Jack Posey did not play for Penn State in this game. Who obviously, had the brutal injury at the end of the quarterfinal against Army last year. So that's not a great sign that he isn't in there and the defense looks like this. I mean, this is 2 games in a row now. Obviously, Duke last year in the Final Four. I mean, look, you kind of expected Duke would, score a bunch of goals without Posey in there, but now this one as well, without your All-American type defenseman. That this happens. But eventually Penn State just kind of like puts it together. Like they go after going down 10-6, they score 5 of the next 6 and they get to 11-10. Or 5 of the next 6, they tie it up at 11-11. Colgate answers though right back, but Penn State ties it at 12-12. So like at some point it does approach like a normal game.
Then the final minute happened.
Penn State. Yeah, and Penn State looks like Penn State. And it's like, okay, they'll get out of here with a dub. It's opening weekend. You want to know, we move on, just forget it ever happened.
We're on Villanova. Yeah, exactly.
And then Colgate has the ball with the chance to win last possession. And Penn State gets to stop. So, there's like 15 so seconds left. Maybe there's a chance to go down. If not, okay, we go to OT. Probably win the face-off. Let's win it there. and in midfield they just throw it right back to the Colgate guy. Literally, like as like me, it's safe to like a group chat, like or like as it's happening, or just like screaming no. Literally, like you have no other. If you're watching it live, I'm sure all of you, if you're watching, there's no other reaction to have. Like other than especially because Colgate before, like Colgate turns it over on the same.
Yeah, it's like Colgate, no, and then Penn State, no. Yeah, that's exactly the reaction on the DMs and on our Twitter stream.
Throws it right to him, and it's like like it's like watching a slow moving car crash. It's like
yes. The Penn State announcer was like, "Penn State, terrible turnover." Yes, it was.
And sure enough, the Raiders capitalize and score the game winner.
The Raiders. Are they for real?
The Raiders. I guess they do have Syracuse on Monday. If they're 2-0 over Penn State and Syracuse, then the Patriot League is going to be absurd this year.
Listen. It's like that time I said if Penn beat Duke and Maryland, they'd be ranked number 1 in the country, and they lost both games. I mean, that would be. I mean, they probably should be ranked in the top 20, like in our top 20. We do a poll. IL doesn't do a poll on Monday. I mean, maybe they should be. I don't know. I guess. What's the last time Colgate had a win this big? They beat Cuse one year, didn't they? When was that? 2019. Griffin Brown, kind of lit Cuse up in the Carrier Dome.
Other than that
was like. Well, they made the tournament They made the tournament 2015, I think.
Made it in 2012. Made the quarterfinals.
Yeah, well, that was a bomb. Even after Baum left, they made like one more tournament after that. But then the last like big one I can remember for them was I remember the one time they beat Cuse, because after that the last in 2015 it kind of went downhill pretty quickly. They beat Cornell in 2018 at home. Cornell made the tournament that year. I think 2019 they beat Cuse. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they went to the Dome opening week and beat Cuse. Unfortunately, that season ended with them going 4-9. So I guess you hope doesn't repeat itself. If you're Colgate, you have more momentum. I mean, this was a crazy. Jack Frassian made 7 saves for Penn State. That's crazy. Like, that's crazy to imagine, think about. I can't imagine Penn State. The defense is kind of mild. That's concerning without Posey. The offense, I don't know. It's weird. Some freshman has 3 goals. Not a lot of depth though. They only had like 5-6 goal scorers. So
that is a big concern. It is a concerning result though for Penn State. I mean, again.
Oh God, yeah.
I mean, their only saving graces. It was kind of a wonky weekend for the Big Ten all around, but most of those teams won, and the other team that lost was to a ranked Denver team. This is even if you're rusty, you should be putting away Colgate.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's not. Look. In the best possible scenario, it still is not going to look good at the end of the year. Like there's no real sort of like looks good for them. Even if hey, they turn it around and they bounce back against Villanova next week, and I think they got Navy in a couple weeks. Stony Brook's in there, so yeah, in the best case, yeah, it's not great. Yeah, there's no footing unless Colgate wins the Patriot League. But I don't think anyone, even if Colgate has a great year, I don't think anyone says he can win the Patriot League. So yeah, no, it's a bad. It's not good. It's not good. It's not good for sure. But hey, shout out to Colgate. Again.
It was a very good day for the Patriot League. You also had Loyola with a quality win over Georgetown, 18-10. I mean, I know we had Adam was a little high on Loyola, but like I mean, it's plausible they're at Ridley. Loyola coming away with the victory is not, that surprising, but I think the way that they won it in a blowout, this was never close at all the whole game. Loyola was in full control the whole way through.
Kind of what we're saying in preseason. Georgetown been really good last few years, last 4 years, but a lot of new faces. Kind of a really good high octane offense last year. Got a lot of new faces. So he's going to recruit well, but we always say taking some time to get everybody worked in and more comfortable with themselves, and it just kind of happened at the worst moment. Georgetown's also kind of a team, even last season notwithstanding, where you can go through lulls and not have any kind of offensive output, and unfortunately for them, it just happened in the first game of the season against a hype Loyola team, which probably was, looking for some revenge after last year's shellacking by the Greyhounds, by the Bulldogs against the Greyhounds. So, I mean, kind of just like a confluence of factors, that kind of caught up with Georgetown at the right time for Loyola, wrong time for the Hoyas. But yeah, I did not see this coming. I thought maybe Loyola could cover. I think Hounds were down -6.5.
That was too. I mean, that was too steep. I thought Georgetown would win, but
yeah, 6.5 at Ridley seemed yeah.
Ridley's one of. There are a few places in the sport that where home field genuinely matters. Ridley is one of them. You could argue it might be the biggest home field advantage in the sport. Loyola should get 2 goals, just for playing at Ridley, at least, in every kind of type of game. Think of the teams they've beaten in the last 3 years at Ridley. Loyola teams that haven't made the tournament, they've beaten Maryland, Duke. I mean, it's they're yeah, playing at Ridley is different than There's very few in the sport actual home field advantages. Klockner obviously is one of them. Homewood when Hopkins is Hopkins can be. The Dome can be, but it's got to be a certain. But
you're also and also Hopkins and Syracuse the past.
Yeah, Ridley's Ridley's it's a genuine. Just, I'd probably put it in. I really can't.
Yeah, because really just Klockner. I mean, Maryland Stadium's more so that Maryland the program than any home field advantage. Yeah.
I really can't think of any home field advantage I would put over Ridley in the entire country.
Maybe Denver because of the high altitude and long travel distance.
Yeah, I don't. But Georgetown. I mean,
what is Georgetown's record in Barton?
Georgetown did go to the last time Georgetown lost was the Arby's game.
Mm-hmm.
The last time they lost in Denver. So they lost. They've been to Denver since and they've won, but they lost. Didn't Georgetown lose? What was the year Georgetown lost to Loyola late in the season? Was that at Ridley?
Let me see. So
yeah,
is that one game?
I think it was a night game at Ridley. Yeah,
it was a midweek because this used to be a midweek series.
Yeah, that was 2021,
and that was at Ridley. And then 2022 was they beat him at home, and then 2023 they beat them at Ridley last year, and that was last year was really concerning, was because it was Loyola just lost by like 16 goals to Georgetown at home. Like, you know, so it was like a nadir kind of like the program. But yeah, in general, no. Like I would put, because again, it's like all these, like we mentioned Virginia, like you can throw Arlotta kind of in there as well. Like Notre Dame can have a good, but it's like all these teams are like still like, you know, they're awesome. You know, like Loyola doesn't have to be, you know, great to beat you at Ridley. They can just beat you because it's Ridley, and that's what happens. They flat out, you know, it's a different environment, it's a different place, and they beat you. And that's what happens. So yeah, it was, you know, and that was, I'd put it number one. Georgetown they got smoked. I mean, is February Loyola a thing?
I
think it's a fair question.
I mean, it was a thing last year. I don't know if they did beat Maryland and Hopkins back to back, but then they had that loss to Rutgers. 2022 was not existent. They started the season 0-4. 21, 1-goal win against Richmond. 2020, they had wins over Hopkins and Rutgers. 2019, they had wins against Virginia, Hopkins, and Rutgers, but then a loss to Towson.
Yeah.
2018 wins against Hopkins, lost to Virginia. 1-goal loss to Virginia. So, yeah, I guess you could count it as a thing.
No, I'm just thinking last year. I mean, I was trying to, you know, look at how similar this was to the Maryland and Hopkins wins last year's. I mean, their offensive efficiency is off the charts. They scored on more than half of their possessions. In the Maryland and Hopkins games, they shot 46% in the Maryland game, 34% in the Hopkins games, and we kind of talked about it, like looking back, like it felt like they kind of caught a bender a bit, like they just shot the hell out like for 2 games, and then it just kind of. This game they shot 44%. So like, is it sustainable? But looking at it, they only turned the ball over 5 times in this game. Like this was a clean, like just the execution was yes, exactly. It looked like Loyola. The ones last year kind of looked like
they owned that middle 50.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The ones last year kind of looked like, not that they played poorly by any means, but like, you know, they had moments where they looked, you know, iffy, but like they kind of shot so that like this looked like, I mean, they just whooped Georgetown's butt everywhere. like across the whole field. Aside from face-offs, I guess, for Georgetown. Like, you know, which might be one positive. You know, where they went.
We got a time check, Jake?
We got 21 minutes.
Alrighty.
So yeah, Loyola, big win.
Big win. How about Banes of your existence, Jake?
The melatonin game.
A double overtime game that is Maryland 12, Richmond 11.
Sometimes, listen, man, fellas, sometimes our fate's worse than death. This game went to OT. I was like, oh no. And then it was a double OT. Oh my god.
Just end it.
By the end, I was just glad it was over. This game what was it you said? You were talking about the Loyola Georgetown game. You were talking about like the audio on it.
Like recording a podcast in a men's room. Yeah,
that was the vibe. That was the vibe of Maryland Richmond. That was like the vibe of Maryland Richmond. Like it had like you know, trying to go to work on Tuesday after a long weekend. You know, it's just like maybe I can hit snooze one more time. You know, like when you wake up with like back pain on like February, like 30, it's 30 degrees. You're like, oh, it's not gonna be a good day. It's like that. It's, you know, it's just it feels like today's gonna be a hard day.
Yeah.
It's just this. God, this was
I mean, we've been saying
low energy. It's just everything about it was low energy. Was Starsh on commentary for this? I think, God, well, it's not like it's not a lot of juice.
To be fair, at the beginning of the season, we did say, Richmond's gonna have their opportunities, and they did today. The bad news is they just don't know how to finish any of these upset bids.
There is if someone out there like who does like the film, like breaks down the film and the analysis of it, like really, you could like cut up so many end of possession Richmond games against these big teams, and it's got to be like just like what not to do. They're so bad. Like they never seem to get a good shot. Like they never. Sometimes I wonder. Like they never seem to get a shot off. Period. Like let alone they never seem to get a good shot off. But like it's what Quint always talks about, where he's like, the team, like they pass the ball around every time, and by the time like you just burn like 15 seconds, because you just like try to do like the cycle once, like okay, like you just like let the defense just like set. It's like they do that, and like those end of possessions are just, it's become like a bit at this point, like where it's going to like you see it and you're like, oh there it is, when I'm watching as the opposing fan, and I'm not truly like frightened about what's gonna happen, because I'm like, I kind of get the feeling Richmond's gonna like make a mess of this possession, because I've seen this happen so many times where they mess one of these possessions up at the end of the game. I don't know. The execution is just, it's really maddening sometimes. And they did a great, like this game, like was like, you could have watched, like you could have taken like at any point in this game from like when Richmond came out hot, they were up 5-2. Maryland was sloppy early. They were throwing the ball around. I think McNaney, Big Mac had like 3 turnovers, which is, anytime your goalie has 3 turnovers, it kind of gives you an idea of what kind of game it's going to be. He played well. I mean, in goal, he looked like Logan McNaney in terms of like saves. But anytime your goalie has like 3 turnovers, like it could be a journey. But like they were throwing the ball around, and Richmond capitalized. They took advantage of some poor off-ball defense by Maryland, and like after that, it felt like you could just like watched any, like you could chop up any segment of this game, and it was like you wouldn't really know like what like part of the game you were watching, because it was the same thing. Maryland will get up by like a 2-goal lead, and Richmond will cut it back. And Maryland will go up by like 2, and Richmond will cut it back. And Maryland will go by 2, and Richmond just kept coming back and come back and come back. They never let Maryland go up by more than 2. And then they got the chance right there to win the game. And it's the same. We always talk about Richmond, like it's there. You just gotta finish the drill, land the plane, like just. And
it ended up being like crashing your plane on Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 on landing.
Lemon
Booty the weekend. Do we? We've talked about Hopkins.
Yeah.
We've talked about Penn State, and I think it applies here to Richmond too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It was just a sleepy game. It looked like February. I think these are 2 good teams, but if you're Richmond, like we talked about, obviously your season isn't over. I mean, it's lost, but how many big teams they've got in, at home, and anytime when it's there, you got to take it. Like you don't want to think about, we got more coming later. No, like when it's there, you got to do it. Like you gotta. And it has become a perpetuating sort of thing with them that they have these moments, but late in the game, they just can't get it over the line. And I think that's, that's disappointing. It's like, what is, it's not this is not an isolated thing. If you've watched Richmond, you've seen their late game execution is not good on offense. It's just, and again, it's not like Richmond doesn't play good offense, because they do play good offense. Like they've had top 10, top 20 offenses. Like you don't make the tournament as many times as they do without playing good offense, but there's something about whatever it is with them in that late situation where it becomes overthinking or maybe overcoaching, and it falls apart. It's not good. But yeah, Maryland. I don't know. Yeah, this is one of those just flush.
You won. Move on. Get on with life.
I don't really want to remember anything about this. Really that I watched. It was bad. It was a February. I mean, Hopkins Denver for February was a really well played game. I mean, aside from towards the end, it became a mess. But the quality of both teams early was sharp. This was. Yeah, it was February 3rd, and it was the first game of the season. It was pretty rough.
Right. Meanwhile, in other Homer news, Syracuse beats Vermont 20-7. First half looked like it was all right. The Syracuse offense is going to need to take some time to kind of click together with the chemistry of the transfers and the young guns. It might take a little bit of time in seasoning. Second quarter onward, though, that's a Syracuse offense that we've been wanting to see, and looks very promising. Defense was looking very good as well for the Orange, albeit against a Vermont team that's been decimated by the transfer portal. Whereas a team like Syracuse has gained from it, Vermont's lost a lot, so they're going to have to a lot to have to readjust before American East time. But still, a good first start for the Orange in today's game. And again, I'm really liking how, even though the first quarter was looking a little bit shaky, it does look like everyone's on the same page offensively and complimenting one another. A ton of assisted goals in this game for the Orange, which is really good to see. And, Kahn at the faceoff X looked good. Got some good defensive performances. Yeah, promising first start for Syracuse. I mean, they got a quick turnaround, 2 more days till they have to play a Colgate team that went on the road and beat Penn State. So definitely not a gimme heading into Monday. But that's the start you wanted to have for the Orange, and that's what it looked. I know after the first quarter, I was looking like, oh, God, this is going to be the same old Orange team of the past couple of years where we're struggling to get through a team we should be blowing out and all that. But then things really started to come together in that second quarter and was really fun to watch. That offense really humming, and especially with the teamwork that they were putting it in. Real team offensive effort.
This is what I was looking for, Ryan. We were talking on our pod before games this weekend about what games kind of mindful of, and I was like, I thought of this one. I was like, I wanted to see this Cuse team. A lot of changes on coaching staff, a lot of changes on personnel and roster, and it felt like you had this core, these young boys coming up, and now you have these transfers coming in, and it's just how they mesh. And I was up off with a big number, giving the opponent caveats and all that are noted, but I was I still really I wanted to see that offense just kind of mesh and continue their progression, and a little bit of a slow start, but yeah, I think that's, if you're a Cuse fan, yeah, you want to see a 20 spot every game and offense playing like that, it's, I think, bodes well for the year. Again, first opponents early February, got a quick turnaround coming up for one this weekend, which looks to be a much more stout, tough opponent than maybe initially believed. But yeah, I think this is just a good sign that this is at least the offense. First game got whatever jitters out of their way, seemed to really they really started humming. There was a little bit of a point where Vermont was oh, they're gonna be a little frisky, and then kind of just blinked and Syracuse was up 6. So I mean, if you're a Cuse fan in the Dome, it was a great crowd. You got to see what you're hoping for in your first game of the season. Everybody get some work, get some points, get and come home with a victory, or go home with a victory. So yeah, I mean, I was hoping to see from them. Like I said, I thought they're gonna have a strong year this year, and it's a good start to the year.
I think Vermont might be the first. We kind of talk about and obviously this is the last of the COVID kind of years to a significant degree. Talk about like teams being really like hit hard by COVID. Some of like the smaller teams, mid majors, with guys going to Big Ten, ACC. And there's been you've had like individual players will go for last year, but I can't really recall like one team being necessarily like hit really hard by it, like with a specific group of players. Maybe just like you lose one or two guys. Vermont feels like the first case I can remember of like one specific team just getting really, really hit hard by portal attrition. Like Vermont's entire defense is at Maryland now. Like they're like one of their top, like Jackson Canfield is starting for Maryland. Vermont's long stick midi, Nick Alviti, one of the best in the country, is starting at Maryland. They got a short stick at Maryland. Their face-off guy, Tommy Burke, is at Ohio State now. Who's been one of the best in the country over the last couple of years. And then like Matt Schaefer, he graduated. But like when you have like four guys and you're like face and then like just now at another another conference, like one of the big two, that's one of the big cases I can remember of team just like getting kind of rated like really attrition portal. And I could see it being I think it could be a tough year for Vermont. Due to that, like their defense was the strength of that team last year. It carried them a lot, like we talked about, Save. And losing that, and then I think it could be could be a tough year. I think and I'm not saying like I think that obviously they'll compete in the America East, but I get the feeling kind of their run as the where they've the last couple of years where they've been the dominant team. I think that's probably at least for this year come to an end.
All right. Can you have very bad vibes in a win against a pretty decent opponent too?
Yeah, is this talking about Ohio State? I mean, look,
Ohio State 11-8 victory over Utah.
Nobody can believe in us, Jake.
Listen, I think Ohio State, I think deserves some credit. I think they deserve some credit for this. Like
defense. 42 points, like held. 42 minutes. The last 41 minutes, 42 minutes of the game, they held Utah to 2 goals. Like, I know Steins got hurt, and that took a little bit of the sales out of Utah's offense, but still, like, gritty, tough, like win coming, like really not pretty. Absolutely not. That's something. And there's gonna be a lot of discussion in the film room, I'm sure. But a lot of stuff to clean up. But yeah, like, would you rather be Hopkins look pretty on offense and lose, or Ohio State similar, like kind of? Well, Denver's probably, I don't know, significant, but like Denver's better than Utah, at least by polling. So, but yeah, I'd rather be an Ohio State fan right now. Just for today, not for the rest of the season. But yeah, I was like many, quite concerned about the Buckeyes when we watched this game. Like, I mean, Utah jumped all over them, like 6-2 lead, and I was like, this is not going to bode well for Ohio State fans. And like they were just able to get their composure back. Again, Stein's getting hurt for Utah. Had a lot to play, in their offense. But yeah, there's something about like getting punched, being able to like regroup, and like being able to like advance and like get back to your game plan and just make it work somehow or another. And that's kind of what Ohio State did. Even like it was kind of ugly. It was still like 8-8. I thought like they had to tie it at 8 because Utah had taken the lead late in the fourth, and I was like, oh yeah, maybe Utah would like kind of pull this out, but just felt like Ohio State defensively maybe just threw their weight around and just kind of like out muscled and just outworked Utah. And whatever the way they started, the way they finished is how they won. They got the W. That's all that matters. So yeah, it's like I don't know if is this a sign to go back Ohio State, Jake? Maybe I'm going back to my old ways, but we'll play. We'll play it by ear. So.
No, yeah, they got. I mean, look, they got ways to go. Obviously, the offense, yeah, it was. You had to grind it out. But no, yeah, I think coming back from where they were, and Utah kind of let them into it. Like Utah was up 6-2, felt like they could have kind of finished it off, but some penalties, mistakes, let Ohio State just kind of chip away at it, get back in it, and then obviously Stein's injury was tough. Gannon Matthews, the Cleveland State transfer, Ohio State had five goals. But yeah, I think look, Ohio State, they were working in progress. I mean, look, they finished last in the Big Ten last year. They won 5 games. Like, it's not going to be pretty overnight. But no, I think Utah's a solid team. I think coming back from that, so the deficit's a pretty solid place to start. Get that win. So, all right, 348.
All right. So elsewhere in the NCAA, in our segment we'll call elsewhere in the NCAA, Rutgers starts off the season 14-12 victory over Lehigh in Piscataway. Lehigh looked pretty solid in this game too. So again, Patriot League looking good first week audition. For the most part, because Bucknell lost to Merrimack 14-10. That's a big win for Merrimack in terms of their program. I know Bucknell's been down, but that's a solid victory for Merrimack. 14-10 there. Navy beats Mount St. Mary's 19-6. Overtime winner for Cleveland State over VMI 12-11. High Point doubles up Mercer 14-7. So the High Point offense humming a bit there. Hofstra with I believe that was a 9-goal first quarter for the Pride. Beat Wagner 21-9. And Marquette beats Air Force 12-6. So good start for the Golden Eagles there in Colorado. And then NJIT 10, St. John's 8.
Want to know NJIT?
Highlanders. Who called it early? Right, this is going to be one of our preseason predictions. Like makes it big. NJIT. It's optimism. It's good vibes, great vibes. NJIT.
That's immaculate. We talked about Duke. We mentioned Duke Bellarmine.
Did we talk about?
Oh yeah. Sorry, we mentioned Duke Bellarmine. Yeah, Duke wins 20-12 over Bellarmine.
Great teams cover.
Yeah, exactly.
Great teams cover.
VMI too, as well. But Navy, who thought 19 goals? I mean, Mount St. Mary's.
Navy
as new coach and all that. But
in case I forgot that too.
Unbelievable. It was not. No. I'm just like when you noted that Hofstra goal output, I was like, what other team? I was like, oh yeah, Navy. I did not expect us to drop a 19 spot.
Maybe Cottle was the difference maker.
Navy, 19 goals on 52 shots, which is just quick math, 36.5% shooting. But I saw something like I was seeing a couple of the Navy folks tuning the time, and they kind of got off to a slow start, and then they just didn't miss for the rest of the game. They were just kind of pouring it in. Max Hewitt got 4 goals. Mac Haley had 3 goals. Arline had 3 goals. Pretty good from them there. Duke did the right thing. They put Zawad at attack with O'Neal, and he had 8 points. O'Neal had 7. That'll do. I thought. Yeah, Rutgers, I thought pretty good. Scott Koulis, Knobloch, 7 goals, 7 assists. Suter and Brams, 18-30 on faceoff. It's pretty solid, competitive. So it's a pretty good game.
Yeah, a good game for both teams, I think, for that. I think Rutgers, you're getting your known quantities doing a good job in that game. And given how some of the other teams in your conference look today, that's a solid start for Rutgers.
Yeah, NJIT. Yeah, I think that's,
St. John's.
Yeah.
I mean, bad enough day when the basketball team lose in a sold-out Garden. We're thinking, the Garden's St. John's is back, the aura of the Garden, and then no. And then their lacrosse team loses. I keep on saying this for St. John's. There's no reason why this team should be struggling that much when you have the prime location in New York City, but it's also like a Long Island school. The neighborhood's kind of like Western Nassau County, but you're in New York City, in Queens, and you had that moment, and now it's just you're losing NJIT.
It's just like, it's safe. I think we talk. It feels like just institutional apathy. just like built up over like years. Like Justin Turley, like I don't put it like, I mean, look, I mean, he's the coach. Like they got to win. Like at some point you have to, like literally they have to win. But it feels like just corrodes, like just years after year after years after years of just institutional sort of like apathy of how many years in the Big East, like when they finished last, and it was just like, okay. I mean, I don't know are their facilities actually better than NJIT's? I'm asking that as like a legitimate question. Like, we've seen like
probably not, because I mean our good buddy Chris got a tour of their new facilities. St. John's, I don't think has done anything since.
Like stadium, like I think that's like a fair, like actual kind of like, you know, in terms of like investment.
I drove by their stadium the other day on Union Turnpike heading to work, and it's the same as it was when I saw them, 2016, 2017, when Q's played there with the bleachers and the parking garage.
Yeah,
they got to at least like move to the soccer stadium that's on top of a parking garage rather than the lacrosse stadium next to the parking garage.
And NJIT's putting a lot into like
athletics in general.
Yeah, NJIT's investing, and like they got Wolf in there. Like I think they're on and up for ascendancy certainly. So I think they got Siena next. So what was our target for them? Was it like that we thought they could win like maybe 6?
Yeah, I said it was like 5 or 6.
Siena could be an interesting, because Siena was, solid team last year in the MAC. So that could be a really, and they go out Mount, then they're home to Monmouth, home to Manhattan, at Wagner, home to Linden. I mean, these are
Wagner
like
and Lindenwood.
I'm not going to. I think they'll win those for sure. But I'm saying like Siena at Mount. These are not out of they're not out of the question games for this program anymore.
And the America East is a bit more open now too. So I mean, they could make some headway.
Yeah, I think it's worth keeping an eye on. They were competitive in the American games. They were competitive. They didn't, they only got 1 or 2 wins, but they were competitive in the games.
All right. That
ran over into extra
That's
time.
all right. Yep.
That's it.
So, thank you all for joining us for our first Saturday Night Power Hour. We'll run these usually more around 6:30ish going forward, but just again, thanks to YouTube's 24-hour safety lock. But as always, you can follow us on Twitter at college_cross. Also subscribe to the Patreon, the Crosse Commission on Patreon. You got access to a bunch of awesome bonus features, bonus episodes of podcasts, exclusive articles, all that good stuff. You can also follow me at RyanMcD29, though I'm contemplating going private after a random tweet I had last night for the NHL skills competition ended up having 5 bots tweet back at me, quote tweeting random news stories, and all of them had avatars of those stupid monkeys, the what do you call it? The NFTs of like the dumb looking monkeys. So probably going to be hitting the lock button before long on that.
I think the bots still might find it.
You never know, but at RyanMcD29.
I'm at Erie_Barrister. Follow us on Spotify as well. You can follow the Patreon account there now.
I think we're on Apple Podcasts as well. I think we're everywhere where you can get your podcasts, which doesn't include Google Podcasts anymore, or won't include Google Podcasts anymore.
Forward out.
They go away. Yeah. R.I.P. Rest in peace. So
big blow to my brand. This is.
But thank you as always for your continued patronage, and midweek, Jake and Safe will get you previewed for week 1, and we'll be back at it next Saturday on YouTube on the Saturday Night Power Hour. Have a good night, everyone, and as always, stay hydrated. Remember, this is a power hour, but not the power hour that you do in
water
college.
only. Water only.
See you out there.
Thank you much, President.